We're live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and, we crashed out. I don't think any of us in this room thought that lineup was set up to score any sort of goals from the get-go, and, it's exactly what we got.
John, I'm just impressed with the energy you're able to bring to this intro, because I feel like everything is deflated right now. There is such a level of frustration and disappointment with this result. It's hard to put into words.
Yeah, it was really disappointing to see. It looked like I don't know. It didn't look like they tried to line up at the best position. I know we're going to hear from Ben Olsen soon. I wonder if he attributes it to just the fatigue of the tournament, a couple of injuries throughout the squad, but I didn't like the way they lined up, and I don't like the way they looked on the field.
Yeah, I don't think we have very many excuses. I mean, I think you can hear it in all of our voices. Like, that was really unfortunate. We did have a couple really good chances, and I just can't believe, the way they scored. That was, after all the work that we put in to get those 2 points, it's, really unfortunate that we flared out like that. And I feel gutted right now. Like I said on our preview show, is that absolutely DC United's not going to go out in this tournament before the knockout round. And I don't know, and I said it to you all, it felt a little bit like watching the USMNT against Trinidad and Tobago.
Shades of Cuba.
You're watching it and you're like, this can't be happening, and then they score and you're like, no, but we're definitely going to get one back, and then it gets further in on the game and you're like, I don't think that I'm watching this happen right now, and then it did, and I'm just a little bit at a loss for words right now.
Well, and how much of that is being a DC United fan and frankly being used to a certain level of disappointment when it comes to really coming through in major clutch opportunities, and how much of it is the way this team has played these last couple of games, particularly that Toronto game. Those last 15 minutes are magical, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in saying, hey, 80th minute, you only needed one goal to still be alive here. There was still an opportunity, still going forward, but really no chance that you look at and say, yes, that one was the one that was going to put DC United over the top.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think we'll get to some of the key play breakdowns here in just a few minutes, but I think for sure second half they looked better. They looked a little bit more comfortable. We have to talk a little bit about the lineup, though, but because before I can say I was shocked that there were no changes at halftime, I think we all. I mean,
4 D mids. 4 D mids in the lineup. Segura came to us originally and played as a D mid. And then we have Felipe, who was a D mid for New York Red Bulls, and then we have Canals, and then we have Moreno, who's just got off a red card suspension.
Well, we talked Friday about will Canals slot right back in, and now Moreno's potentially looking to try to get his job back, or how does this work? And what Benny gave us tonight was nobody loses their job. We'll just start three standard defensive mids. We'll throw in another former defensive mid or pseudo defensive mid up top at striker. The only thing I can think of was that the plan was to have a clean sheet, and then, like you said, Michael, we'll score late in the game when we bring on Pippa, we bring on Kamara, who apparently was at least somewhat available because he did come in. I can't wait to hear from Ben about what was going through his mind there, because this is not how you line up in an elimination game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good enough. It's not good enough to say that you're going to go on a tournament and win it. It's not good enough to say that you deserve to be in a knockout round. I mean, you need to have an offensive option. That's absolutely what we thought at the beginning of the game, is we're just going to buckle for the first half and wait for those second half subs to come on and make second half subs. We're going to wait for Higuain to come on and make some magic happen. And that's not a winning team's mentality. We didn't have that offensive prowess, I think, throughout these 3 games. We said it during the past 2 post-game shows, and it's so frustrating, because I mean, I'm so positive about this team, but you almost looked at this game and you thought there was no other option, there was no other chance, nobody thought we were going to get these goals that we needed to, because you didn't see that was going to happen.
Well, in the strategy you're describing, the bunker and waiting for the second half, that's what a team does when they feel like they are clearly outmatched by their opponent. This is a Montreal team that had not won a game this tournament. This is not a team that is far and away more talented than you. You could go through the roster. this is a team that you should at least be going head to head with, ready, and especially in a situation where all you have to do is get a tie and better than even chance you're going through. To sit back and say, "Oh, let's shorten the game. Let's try to get lucky with some second half action." I got problems.
Yeah, it's just not a good way to approach this game. A must-win game.
It's not fun.
No, and people in the chat are saying that right now. They don't know how Segura lasted 80 minutes as a center forward when he's not a center forward, and people struggling to get through this game. People stayed up really late for this game, and this is what the team delivered to them. It's about entertainment. It's also about being a part of a club and sticking with them through everything. But come on, you got to give us something.
Yeah, we talked, and look, there's a part of me that understands in a Ben Olsen system why a guy like Ulysses Segura gets the minutes that he does. I mean, he still had incredible hustle, late into that second half. So I understand. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with it, but I understand why Benny plays him so much. But it's just incomprehensible. And I gave him a tough time the other night, but we got to talk about Yamil Assad too. What is this guy doing? Because he's not adding value on the field. I'll tell you that. I mean, it got to the point where we were joking, and here's a pass to Assad, and we got a turnover incoming, and boom, it would be a turnover. I can't work with that anymore. And the problem with this team right now that they're going to have is, everybody had the excuse of several months off, not being able to practice together, not being able to train together. What now? When will they play another game? We don't know. It's going to be at least a month.
Yeah, I think for Assad, everyone wanted him back because he's like a beloved DC United player, and I absolutely agreed with that. I really wanted him back, but even as I wanted him back, I said that he's not the answer. He's not that person who's going to go out there and score goals for us. And I mean, we saw that and then some in this tournament.
Yeah, we got people chiming in that Assad should not be getting significant minutes the way he's playing, and pointing out how Gressel seems frustrated every time they cut to him on the screen. I was super excited for Gressel. I watched him a lot when he was with Atlanta, and he has not been able to transfer that success to DC United. And I'm starting to question maybe he was just a player in a good scheme, or maybe he's a good player in now a bad scheme. And after tonight's display, man, I'm leaning towards the second one because no one looked good out there. No one really shined, except for, we'll get to it later, our boy Paredes is just fantastic, but everyone else was just borderline dumpster
rough
fire.
Tournament for the midfield as a whole.
Yeah, it's frustrating to see a game like this, and particularly getting knocked out. It's very tempting to jump on every player and say, hey, this isn't good enough. And frankly, that's exactly the case. It was not good enough. You're going home. You're one of a very few teams that are going home. You're below average in this tournament. Assad was frustrating. One of the things that endears Assad to us as fans is that work rate he puts in. Always running, always going 100%. And there were times today where it looked like he was walking around, getting frustrated, missing touches. I understand that he didn't have a whole lot of playing time when he left DC and was down in Falaise.
He's shown he can do it in this league, though.
Yeah, he's got the talent. It's just not translating. And then when you couple that with, frankly, disappointing performances across the board, you get a result that has DC United going home.
Yeah. We're live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and we appreciate all the interactions we're seeing on the YouTube chat. For those of you staying up and coping with us here, you can also interact with us using the hashtag Tried and True DCU, and also our text line is open here, and you can always get in touch with us using the text line at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6DCU.
Yeah, I want to get to one of the YouTube comments I'm looking at right now because it's a good question to pose to y'all. James Graham from the UK staying up way early.
I think woke up very early.
Got up very early for it, yeah.
Yeah, he says, if you guys were given these players, how would you play the team? I understand that Ben Olsen had some injuries today. How would you have done it differently?
I think with more heart. I just didn't see it out of this team, and it's so frustrating because you watch the post-game shows from previous ones, and we were fortunate enough to be able to listen to the pre-game pressers and just.
Speaking of which, Sam, I have to cut you off. We are going to go live to Ben Olsen right now.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Everyone hopefully knows the drill by now, but once more, just to reiterate, please go ahead and raise your hand with the button on the screen that you'll see if you have a question for Ben. We'll try to get through as many as we can. Ben, we'll go ahead and get started with Steve Goff, Washington Post. Steve, go ahead.
Hey Ben, what's your level of disappointment being knocked out of the tournament in the group stage?
When you're here and you're caught up in it and you want to be in this tournament and you want to advance to the group stage, you want your 3 points or you want your points for the regular season. So we're disappointed in both of those parts of today. It was a journey, and it was a lot. Again, not a lot I think went our way, but we gave I think a pretty good performance overall, and we put ourselves in a position to win that game. Unfortunately, we just didn't make any plays. We made one, unfortunately, for them, and then on the offensive end, we got plenty of looks. And we just didn't see out any plays. And you're not going to move on in the tournament if you can't you can't see out a play. But there was some good stuff. I do think we grew throughout the tournament. We got better, and it was I think a lot to ask physically of the guys today. You saw a lot of subs, a lot of guys cramping, and it was we had the least amount of rest as anybody in this tournament, and I think that showed a little bit today. We used some fresh bodies and threw some young guys in, and again had a couple looks and just didn't make the play that made the difference tonight.
Reminder to raise your hand if you have a question for Ben. Next question will go to Jimena from the Washington Times. Jimena, go ahead.
Coach, do you feel the setup of this tournament was a disadvantage?
For us?
Yes.
I don't want to sit up here and make excuses about the tournament. The tournament is I think a necessary one for this league, and I think it's putting on. They've done as good a job as they can to get us up and running, and within that, there's going to be casualties and some circumstances that aren't perfect, but that's most teams are dealing with that in some way. So I certainly I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. Could have won that game.
Thanks, Ben. We're gonna go back to Steve Goff. Steve, go ahead.
Ben, were you surprised that Julian's impact over the group, and to some extent Flores in the first 2 games before he got this injury, didn't have the punch or the impact in the attack that maybe we thought we would see from them?
Well, we certainly have to get more out of both of them, and that's partly my job. That's partly the individual's job. That's partly as our team grows, we will be able to make them excel in those certain areas that they're able to do that. And but yeah, I single a couple players out over the tournament. Again, I thought our center backs, I thought Steve had a great tournament. I thought Felipe was a warrior and had a good tournament. I think you can see Kevin Paredes' quality, and that he's going to be a nice piece for this club in the future. Bill came up with some great saves, and but we've got some work to do in a whole bunch of different areas to get better. But that's partly what this is about.
Next question, we'll go to Jason Anderson, Black and Red United. Jason, go ahead.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for taking the time. Obviously, losing Flores in the build-up to this game leaves you with a tough call to make at that number 10 spot. You have several guys that could play that role. What went into choosing Felipe for that spot?
Who are the other guys that can play it?
Assad, possibly Segura, possibly Pipa, at least for 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was the right call. I'll stand by the 3 midfielders in there. I thought they did really well. The thought process was that we really didn't have a 10 to play, and Pipa's not ready to carry that load yet. He will be at some point, hopefully. But we started in defending out of the 4-4-2. We changed to a 4-3-3 at the water break to shore it up, and then it was we weren't playing with a 10. We were playing with 3 flat in the midfield in the center of the park, and that helped us be able to get a little bit more pressure on them. But yeah, I don't question any of the lineup. I think that game was there to be had today, and we just needed to see out a play or two. And you're not going to win a game if you can't score the goal with your opportunities.
Thanks, Ben. I think we have time for maybe one more question, maybe two. Steve Goff, is your hand risen? I see it right now, but I'm not sure if that's a leftover.
Hey, Ben, so now that this is over, where do you go from here? Obviously we don't really know what happens after this tournament ends. And clearly, as you said, you're still a work in progress as a team. So how do you look ahead at this point?
Well, yeah, we go home tomorrow, and we take a few days off because it's been 20 something days here, and then we'll get back to work probably Monday and get better and look to not only get better on the field, but get better outside of the field in the transfer window and make this team bolster this group. I still think we're short a piece or two and so that's what we'll do. We'll get better there, and we'll see if we can get better elsewhere. And we'll wait for the league and to see what's next, whether it's another tournament, whether it's a league, a Eastern, Western conference setup, regional games, league games. I'm not exactly sure, but I know, again, right now, we'll get back and we'll get training and try to get better.
We'll take one more question. Charles Boehm, MLSsoccer.com. Charles, go ahead.
Hey, Ben, do you think that you have your team's identity set, and are you happy or content with that aspect of it? You mentioned needing.
No.
Could you expand on that a little bit? Is it more than just new faces maybe? Is there something deeper that you want to change?
No.
All right.
Not a happy Ben Olsen in that post-game press conference, which fits the mood with us here. It was tough to listen to. I mean, Benny opened up with the first question from Stephen Goff and replied that, hey, he thought we were set up to win, and
jaws hit the floor here.
Obviously, we were not.
Yeah, it's a difficult position if you're the coach going up there after a game. The last thing you want to do is be answering questions. And
sure,
frankly, we understand where he's coming from. It's hard to talk about a game like this when you're disappointed, when you don't know the next time your team's going to be on the field. I do have to question saying, we thought we had the game there to take it. You had shots. It wasn't like, some games we've seen where you had one shot and happened to go in. You were certainly in the game, but to say the game was there for the taking, we certainly didn't look like a team that was going to take it.
It looks like Steven Birnbaum's also available for some media availability, so we'll throw it to him, and then we'll bring it back and wrap up our thoughts.
What's your assessment of the team at this point, not being able to get out of the group stage when clearly you were in a position today to maybe win the group or at least have a chance at a third place slot?
Yeah. I mean, we blew it. We put ourselves in a chance to win the group or to advance, and we needed to win, and we lost. So that we're not happy about it, and we're going home tomorrow, so it is what it is.
Great, thanks, Steve. Reminder to raise your hand if you have a question for him. I don't see any hands risen right now. We want to make sure we get these guys out of here. Steve Goff, going to go back to you.
Steve, what did you see from the team today that was perhaps lacking in in coming back.
I mean, I thought we did a better job of starting the game and having a little bit more energy instead of the games past where we were pretty slow and didn't have much possession. And obviously, maybe that's the way Montreal played, but we had more possession today. I don't think that our movement was good enough off the ball as a group. I think that it was hard for us to create chances that way. And, we needed to be better in the final third with them. And letting up a goal like that in the first half is right before the water break was really tough. They didn't have any other, clear chances until late in the second half, I think. So, it's frustrating because, we felt like the game was there for us today, and we didn't play good enough.
Thanks, Steve. Next question, Jose Umana, WUSA. Jose, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve. Ben kind of mentioned earlier about playing the 3 different times during the tournament, and mentioning some of you guys came in a little fatigued. How did you feel, you and the rest of the defense felt coming into today, and how much of the late time was a factor in how you guys felt?
I think we felt pretty good, actually. Everyone's in the same boat. It's no disadvantage to anyone. We, obviously it's the way the tournament's set up, and it's a little awkward for everyone, but everyone's going through it. And I felt like we were ready as a group today. We had good trainings before this, and we had a good game plan going into it. We just didn't execute.
Next question, Jimena, Washington Times. Jimena, go ahead.
Steve, where did you go from here?
Well, we go back home and wait to see what happens with our season. We're not sure yet. We haven't heard anything, and then I guess plan accordingly.
I'll pause for about 10 more seconds to see if we have any more questions for Steve before we let him go. Steve, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it.
It's fine.
All right, and that will wrap up the post-game media availability for tonight. And we got to go back to some of the things that Coach Olson was talking about. It doesn't sound like there was much in the questions or the answers for and from Steven Birnbaum. But Sam, you were talking a bit about Ben saying we were set up to win. Do you want to complete that thought? I know we cut you off right in the middle when Steven showed up.
I've had so many thoughts since then. I mean, just generally, I think the feeling in this room, and I can imagine that the feeling for a lot of DC United fans out there listening, is like a lot of frustration, because it seems like we've been hearing from Ben the same answer for how long has he been a coach now, that there are just a couple key pieces that aren't there, and we were set up for success and we just couldn't find that final touch, but we're still looking for identity, and we're going to get there eventually, and we're just going to make a couple more cute signings, and then it'll be there. And it's like, I feel like we've just been waiting and waiting and waiting, and I've never been like a hardcore been out person. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like I'm tired of hearing this rhetoric of like we're right at the cusp and next season it's going to happen, because we've been waiting for next season, and we've had Lutrou, we've had like a ton of like star forwards throughout the league on this team, and we just haven't seen it yet. And I want to say I don't know what the answer is. I feel like the answer is we score goals, and we just haven't been doing that.
Well, and we talked about it a bit here, while Steven was on, and even during, Ben's portion. We brought in players this transfer window, right? I mean, Michael, that was one of the things that you had mentioned. You've got Gressel coming in, you had Assad coming back, which I've beaten that dead horse on this show. You brought in Flores, who obviously was unavailable tonight. Kamara was brought in late last season, but it's not for lack of players in. Now, Obviously, we need more, right? We need more strikers. We need more outside backs. We've talked about that. But I don't know about that. And I thought Jason had a very fair question about, why do you put Felipe in at the 10?
Ben was shocked at that question.
Ben didn't like the question, and we sat here and rattled off a couple more options that you could have put in at the 10. So I don't know. Felipe would have been low on my list of people to plug into the 10. Not to say he had the worst game there, but
Yeah, that's the conversation in the chat right now. Is that Ben Olsen needs to answer these questions. I understand that he's upset right now.
We all are.
It's hard going right after. Yeah.
Right. But for the sake of this franchise, like, we need a direction. We need those questions answered, and we need Ben to. Dude, you've had it for 10 years. Like Sam was just saying, we knew Lucho was leaving. We knew Wayne was leaving. We have cap space because of it. You got to do something with it, and you get to choose the players that come in. You've been with Dave a long time. You guys should be building a team with a style of a play, but it seems like we just...
Yeah, what is the system?
It doesn't feel like we have one. It still feels like we're so lost.
We changed formations from a 4-3-3 to a 4-4-2 and then back again in this game. So...
Well, and if your system is designed to be that gritty, bend, don't break, be a defensive team, you went down, 4 times in this tournament? 3 times you managed to come back and, or the Toronto game aside, you managed to come back and tie it up. This was not a stellar defensive team. It was a team that got fortunate to rally late and get some early results to put yourself in position to advance, but this was not a defensive juggernaut.
Yeah.
No, and there's very minimal counterattack either, right? If you're going to play very defensive, we don't particularly have a counterattacking ability to really move it forward.
We're not that fast up forward without Paul, I guess. But
yeah, and I mean, it's crazy because I feel like we saw it more in this game than in any other game. I feel like we had the most offensive chances. We had the most, creativity around the box. We saw Kevin Paredes doing a couple little, back heels and, between the leg passes.
I thought my man was going to score.
Oh, my God.
We got to talk about it,
right? Me too. But I feel like we saw it most often in this game, but it still just wasn't good enough. And this is, this tournament is just so crazy because these games also count for the regular season, right? So, are we in tournament play or are we in regular season play? But regardless, it just has to be better. And I feel like for 3 games, we didn't see those offensive options.
5 points out of 5 regular season games now for DC United.
Yeah, and if we're going to frame these as regular season games, a loss to Montreal is disappointing. On neutral ground, I know that wouldn't happen in the season, but we'd probably be hoping to dominate them at home and maybe sneak a win away. A tie against Toronto we'll take, and then a tie against the Revs is about average. So maybe that should be what our takeaway from this is that it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's disappointing not to be involved in the league anymore in our future.
But I feel like it hurts more because this is, it's also tournament play, and very much all the players going into it were so confident. They were all saying, and all the social media was saying, our destiny is in our hands. A win and we're through, a draw and we've got an amazing shot at going through. And everybody was so confident that we could get that, and the fact that we couldn't, and it breaks my heart that it also happened off a crazy own goal. How DC United is that?
I mean, it's frustrating to have conceded like that, but you bring up a good point, Sam, and I think you're getting me a little fired up again. That was exactly the messaging all week, and that's what we heard. It's in our hands. We got to win. Well, if you want to win a game, you got to score a goal. And if you want to score a goal, you got to put out a lineup that's capable of scoring a goal, and that's not what we had tonight.
And we saw it for moments. The first 5 minutes, we were completely
First 5 is us. Yep.
Okay, listen. And also, we talked about at the beginning of the game, too, Montreal is also kind of a team that is potentially going to sit back and let you have the pressure. But, we needed to capitalize on that, and we didn't. And we saw moments of it. And I think that, again, we had more chances in this game than we had in any other of the 2 games that we played in this tournament. But it just didn't happen. And the team knew that this was the moment to capitalize. And the fact that they still couldn't do it, and the fact that Ben is all the messaging was that this is our moment. And then Ben, after the post game, is yeah, we just still don't have those key pieces. I don't really know what to make of that for this team going forward.
His answer to the question about, having Felipe play the 10, be that attacking midfielder, that's just so frustrating to say, well, what would you have done? That's why Ben's in the position to make the evaluation.
That's so true.
Yeah, Flores isn't available. He's the guy you expect to be able to play the 10. Paul's injured. You can expect him to slide over there. You've tried Gressel there at times. You've got any number of options there, but to basically throw up your hands and say, well, we gave it our best shot. It's
unsat,
and it's something we've talked about across the board. Is you don't have attacking options. You don't know how to create goals. You're very thin at those critical positions, and it showed.
So let's talk a little bit. I mean, I obviously that question struck a nerve with Ben, but I actually don't know that was the worst selection tonight, or the worst portion of this lineup. I mean, I think I remain frustrated with Segura up top.
Don't get me started.
Not to say he's not improving, a bit up there, but like, to some extent, Kamara was available. We didn't get a chance to ask if he was, we can probably safely assume he wasn't 90 minutes fit.
I don't think he was. I think that came up.
Probably
beforehand,
wouldn't have got an answer from Ben regardless.
It didn't.
I
sound
think
like
it came up beforehand that he wasn't quite 90 fit.
But really, I mean, Sorga didn't have the best performance the other night, but he's at least a striker.
Look, this is I've been on Segura's back the whole time he's been for DC United, and he proves me wrong occasionally, but I remarked to you, John, during the game, he is all hustle, and the technical is just lacking. We watched the first 5 minutes, and we were controlling the game, and Gressel slides him a ball in a decent place, and he puts it, I guess, in Universal Studios is where I was going with that.
Through the virtual scoreboard.
Yeah, we lost the ball immediately, which meant it was nowhere close to on frame.
And so, I continue to be frustrated. I think he's good on the wing because he can hustle there, but as a striker, no. And so Sorga, if you're going to split minutes between Kamara and someone else, let Sorga go out there again. He didn't do that bad in the first game, or in the game that we saw him last time, but I don't know.
Well, I told you guys the other night I would have started Paredes in this game, and back to the question we were trying to address from YouTube from before the press conferences. How would you have lined this team up? I think we talked a bit about that the other day. Obviously, not knowing that Flores wouldn't be available, but I think he's had minutes there. I think you move, and he's also struggled in the tournament out wide. So I would have plugged Gressel back in there. I would have plugged Paredes in his slot, and maybe gone Sorga up top, and those would have been some of the changes I would have made here.
It would have been interesting to see Kevin have a full 90 because he did bring a lot of creativity into the team, and he did have sparks of brilliance that I think the team, quite frankly, wasn't used to in some of the other games. He was trying to do something creative, and I think it would have been very interesting.
I want to bring up this question. We just got it from YouTube because it's so good. James Graham asks, is this a worse loss than the 0-0 tie against 10-man Cincy? Emotionally, I would say it's in the same ballpark.
It's an elimination game in recent memory, so we should have known going in it wasn't going to go great.
Yeah, and I mean, I said, on Instagram, my pregame prediction was that we were going to win 2-0 because I just wanted to believe that DC United was going to win. But I kind of said off air that Cincy game is very fresh in my mind, and that was a must-win situation, and then we went up a man and we still couldn't get it done, and that was a must-win for a home playoff, which is very important, and we saw how that turned out in Toronto. So to answer your question, yeah, like what John said, it feels emotionally very similar, and like you said, it's both a knockout, and I mean, now we're done for this part of the tournament, and I find it very hard to believe that we're going to have very much of a regular season after this. So,
I've been corrected. It was a 9-man Cincy.
Oh, it was absolutely a 9-man Cincy, and thank you for making it worse. Black, you want to get in?
My brain wouldn't comprehend how bad it was.
Yeah, for me, again, I have not gone back and rewatched the Cincy game. I hope I never have to suffer through that again.
I don't think you'll find it on reruns. Even as low as the sports selection got over the past couple months, you're not going to find that
Cincy won't even rerun that one.
But frankly, in that game, it felt like you had opportunities going forward. A lot of that was a factor of being 2 men up and sending guys forward. But that was an opportunity to get a home playoff game, get another game with Wayne Rooney at home when you already know he's leaving and he's been suspended for this game. That game is worse for me.
Yeah,
we still don't have a full grasp on what this tournament means in the scheme of this year. If we do get back to some sort of regular season and have an MLS Cup playoffs, it could be that this is kind of a secondary thing this year. If it goes a different way, maybe we'll look back on it and say, hey, DC really blew an opportunity to take advantage of playing as much soccer as they possibly could this year. And either way, it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
I just to get my answer into the question, I think no, this is not as bad as that game, but I may feel differently if this is the end of the 2020 season, which I don't think it is going to be. I think there's a lot of things that we've seen that indicate, and even from hearing from Benny tonight, and seeing some of the Q&A that's gone out to season ticket members and stuff about what could happen later this season. I don't think the 2020 MLS season's over after this tournament, and I hope to God it's not after that performance tonight.
You might want to hope it is.
Well, yeah, it's another way to look
But
at
I
it.
wonder how much is really going to happen. Yeah. Like, I mean, maybe we get a couple games in. What do those games really mean? And I think that's part of it for me is, the optimist in me is wanting to look forward and say, like, well, what can we build on? What can we learn on? How can we improve? But we just don't know what's going to happen next. And that's part of what makes it hard to be at all positive right now.
Well, Sam, I think you do bring up a good point, and we do need to address it because, aside from the first half against Toronto, this DC United team was not terrible. I mean, tonight's a tough pill to swallow, and I think we've beat it to death that they weren't necessarily set up for success with the lineup selection. But overall, I don't think they played that bad tonight. It's just they're eliminated, right? So it's hard to spin some positives. But we've talked about Kevin Paredes as somebody who we're super excited about.
Almost scored a goal.
Future of the team. I'm a bit disappointed that Griffin Yao didn't get any minutes until tonight because he looked a little bit out of sorts out there when he came in. I think he had a rough touch that could have been a shot on target potentially. But I overall, like, if this were a regular season game, we'd be frustrated, but we'd probably be a little bit more relaxed about the lineup selection.
We wouldn't be comparing it to Cincy.
Injury. Yeah,
yes. But also,
and Sam brought up Kuva on the show, which I feel like we need to.
Having this game as your third game in the space of 8 days, you can tolerate some rotation. You can tolerate changing it, but it's in a tournament setup. This is a do or die game.
Yep.
And we didn't get it done.
Yeah, I also go ahead.
I'll talk us off the cliff a little bit. We conceded a very lucky goal. Bill had that, I think, the shot that Montreal took. Brilliant does something weird with his leg, and he flicks it on after he did the same thing 30 seconds before. And then Montreal bunker. They had at least 8 behind the ball every time after that, and then their forwards are pretty pacey, so they can stretch the field with just them. I can talk us out of that one. The Toronto one was bad in the first half. The Revs game was pretty similar to this one. They got a fluky goal, and then we fought back for 90. So I don't know.
I think we're in some kind of alternate universe, though, because I'm going to, talk us back onto the ledge and say that, soccer isn't a game of, possession and, good build-up and almost chances. It's a game of scoring goals, and we haven't seen in these 3 games that DC United has the ability to score those goals, and that is what it's all about.
Style of play.
Well, and we haven't seen that actually in these 5 games.
I haven't seen that from DC United. Lucharu, brought it and then lost it last season. Obviously Wayne left and Lucha threw a hissy fit and he also left. I just haven't seen it. We haven't just had a true blue striker in so long, and we need someone who has that and who knows how to create chances out of absolutely nothing. Chris Wando walked onto the field yesterday and in 45 seconds scored a goal.
He also got a cross. He was in the 6-yard box and got a cross on his head. I don't think we have that on this team.
The service
was super
was great.
fair. Yeah,
that's
so
for sure.
Again, I feel like we harped on this so much our last show, but just that creativity in the final third and those chances in the final third, we're not creating it, we're not doing it. And it's I wonder if this team has that skill, but we just don't have the confidence. Everyone was bolstering that confidence beforehand, but when you see them around the 18-yard box, no one is making those darting, unique runs. No one is doing that little flick over the defense into those runs. Nobody's doing a little chip or crazy pass or whatever. I feel like we do have the skill, and I've always said this about DC United. We just said about Ben Olsen, you've had 10 years, what are you doing? I feel like we've always had such key players who are able to do that. We just don't I don't know, we just don't put it together at the end, and I'm at a loss for how to do that.
Well, and you look at a game like this where you heard Ben say that game was there for the taking. It's a game where you outshot Montreal 12-7, more shots on target. You had opportunities. But by the same token, you very well could have been down 2 goals. Montreal had a ball that was inches away from going in off the back post there.
That was the moment in the game where I thought, hey, we might pull this out because that doesn't ever go our way. So let's, maybe.
But I was almost ball don't lie. That first one shouldn't have gone in. That one should have. So, we're about equal right now.
And you had another opportunity in the first half where Felipe comes in hard on a tackle. we were asking questions about whether he
should have been sent off.
Gets to participate in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
This was not a game where it just slipped away. It very easily could have been significantly worse and have us not with any hope going into the back half. So props to the team for
That's a
holding
good
it
point.
together.
Yeah,
but
I feel like before the game, it was like a game that we should have had, and then during the game, you're right, like it just wasn't there for us. So it's all the more surprising to hear Ben say it when you frame it like that.
Yeah, we're live here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and we appreciate you getting involved on the YouTube live chat or using the hashtag Tried and True DCU. But if you'd like to join the show, not only is our text line open, but you can actually give us a call at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6DCU if you have questions or want to join the show and share your thoughts. We can help make it better. But one thing that's not going to make it better, unfortunately, we've checked the expected goals here from InfoGoal tonight, and 0.52 for Montreal, 0.45 for DC United, and for those of us who watched both games tonight, two really bad soccer games tonight in the MLS's back tournament. So this was frustrating for the black and red, but Montreal fortunate to have gotten the points tonight, at least according to expected goals as well.
And if there's one thing we've learned from the coronavirus hiatus, that is that even watching bad, frustrating, awful DC United soccer like tonight is much better than not having any soccer at all. So I guess, if we want to talk about ledges or not, at least we're sitting up here watching it.
This is true. So we have a question here on the YouTube chat, and we talked a bit about it, but I think we got to address it directly. How can we be optimistic going forward with this team?
Look, like I was saying before, it's just two fluky goals in the past two games, and we lose. Or we drop points in the first one, and then we lose this one because a deflection. I think the first one, the game against Revs, they scored off a deflected goal as well.
Yep.
Be optimistic that Ben's defense does work, and even though we don't have the attack fine-tuned yet, that maybe Ben can get that in the month off that they have. Maybe Assad can regain his form that he had 2 years ago. Maybe Ola is actually given the ball once a game. Maybe our defense doesn't play inside their own box most of the time. These are just basic things, and I'm seeing you guys say it, and I completely agree. I don't understand why we played the way we did today. And so we've seen this team come back before. We've seen this team play right. They dismantled Seattle last year, and I'm still holding on to that one because it was beautiful soccer. And so I know they can do it. Hopefully we get that team back after this break.
For me, I think there's a few reasons to be optimistic. One, we've had the chance to talk to a number of the players on this show, especially during the little hiatus we went through, and this is a very likable team. I think they're a close-knit team. I think they are getting to the point where they're starting to play well together in certain aspects of the field. We've got Loudoun United now, which we haven't had for very long, so there's a big pipeline now, which obviously homegrowns, we've seen a lot of success, but now there's that second tier level for these folks to get minutes. And now, of course, with USL games restarting, we just had Loudoun play last night, which was kind of tough to watch. But my first comment back to you guys is a number of folks who would typically be starting and racking up a lot of minutes with Loudoun are actually in Orlando, and some of them getting minutes with DC United. So, that's something to be optimistic about. Referencing some of the other young guys, I think, Pines is coming up a lot here in the chat, and I think Donovan Pines has a bright future on this team. It's just been tough to replace because Birnbaum and Briant had a great relationship, great partnership last year. And
that's hard to say,
to be fair, listen, I know it's controversial, but you'd be subbing off DC United's Golden Boot leader right now to bring on Donovan Pines.
That's a problem. That's a problem of our offense that they haven't scored enough. And I was just about to pose the question. I feel like Sam's already got her answer. Is Birnbaum worth the goals he scores for the ones he concedes?
Oh, I was gonna say, is Briant worth the goals?
No, I meant Briant. Sorry.
Because I think no, because in this tournament where you're kind of like, I don't know. You're saying let's give Paredes a chance. Like
Same,
we
we're
would
out of
like
the tournament.
to see. Listen, prior to being out of the tournament, you're saying you want Paredes to get a chance. You want Yao to get a chance. I would absolutely have loved to see Pines, who also has scored for DC United and had that wrongfully taken away. But I would have loved to see him get some minutes in this tournament.
Real quick, we do have a call coming in, so let's go ahead and take this.
Absolutely.
Good early morning. You're on Tried and True. What's going on?
Looks like we're having some
we're having
audio breaking in the call line today.
We're having a really tough time hearing this caller. Stand by one. We'll see if we can get them back.
Yeah. I didn't get a catch any sort of thing that they said, but hopefully they're talking about our center back problem and at what point Pines replaces Brillant. Look, I hope it's soon. Brillant is getting old. He doesn't have the pace, and maybe that's the reason our back line was so deep today, and we didn't really have anything. We didn't have that transition from possession in the back to midfield to attack really quickly. We had spells where DC United were in possession and in control, but it didn't last, and it wasn't quick when we did that. We would get the ball down, and then we would recycle.
Yeah, there were way too many times, you're right, when we would pass the ball backwards, we would make a horizontal pass when it felt like we had the numbers up and we felt like we had the opportunity to really go forward and push to them, and we just weren't doing so, which was very frustrating to see. And I think it kind of goes back to this, like, how do we make that defensive option happen, and how do we make these goals, how do we create these goals?
And you've got
just weren't.
You've got kind of a double-edged sword when you talk about bringing in a lot of these new faces, a lot of these guys with a lot of talent that you're expecting to contribute immediately. You've spent a lot on them. You expect the Floreses and the Gressels to immediately live up to what they're billing as. At the same time, this is a team that's had problems going forward for quite a while, and while you're hoping that they can gel immediately, it will take time. And normally we'd expect that by this point in the season you've played a good number of games, you've started to see how things are panning out. Obviously that's not going to happen this year. I guess all that's to say that perhaps we can't toss this team out entirely. You can't fix all the problems overnight. We've always had problems scoring goals for the last couple of years, except for the brief magic that was Lucharu. But maybe there's hope that they can pull it together now that they're able to start training together, start really playing together, and use this as an inspiration to say, hey, we don't want to feel like this again. We don't want to go into a knockout game and not show up with our best side. But
yeah, and I think it's frustrating because, like, all teams deal with injuries. Like you say, like, yeah, we don't have Paul, Kamara might have had a knock, whatever, but, like, I mean, Vela's not playing for LAFC right now, and, like, they're killing it. Like, and I mean, you see in Atlanta, who have also been eliminated from this tournament, what happens when Joseph's not with the team. Like, I have never wanted to be a team who just relies around one person to score all the goals, and right now we're relying on, like, no one to score all those goals, but, like,
still have the injuries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We still have the injuries, and we can't just blame it on those injuries because we need to have a team who believes that the whole team can do it. And it feels like we do have a team that believes the whole team can do it, but we just don't see that on the field, which is crazy.
I need a style of play. I need what happens when the defense gets the ball. They move it up the field through the midfield. Midfield shifts up, and they either whip in crosses to Kamara, which they were just continually kept taking crosses from deeper tonight. It was desperation on the field, or they need to slot in and make runs like Lucho and Wayne did. I just didn't see anything from that tonight. It seemed like get the ball, get a couple numbers in the boxes, and ping it around and see what happens. And we got a couple chances off that, but that's not how you win soccer games.
I think we're going to try the call-in line again one more time here. I think we have our issue sorted. Good early morning to you. You're on Tried and True.
Yeah, this is Donald, guys. How's it going?
Hey, Donald.
How are you?
Great to hear from you.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, the urgency just didn't seem there with the guys. And when it comes to this tournament, yeah, we're kind of in a weird time, but the issue is that we don't know if this is going to be it. Yeah, we assume that there's going to be some games after this, but this team played like we were at the beginning of the season, and we have a full 40-game slate ahead of us, where I've seen some teams in the tournament play with the urgency that we would expect from a team that doesn't know when they're next going to play. And I'm wondering if, to you guys, that's the most disappointing part to me. I'm wondering if that is for you. And I'll hang up and listen.
Donald, this is why we're friends.
Thanks so much for the call, Donald. We appreciate it. Who wants to take that one first?
I'll take this one. So yeah, that's what we were saying a little bit earlier, is that if this was just a regular season loss against Montreal, we would be frustrated. Like John said, we would be frustrated, but we wouldn't be as disappointed in the team as we are right now. They didn't bring it. And you've seen clubs like Columbus putting teams away when it really mattered. When you only have 3 games, put them away.
You said that, somebody said that today. They were like, oh, well, Atlanta's going to win this game because Columbus doesn't care anymore. And then Columbus won the game because they still care.
Just to keep the flow going.
And I think this, like, it's so cyclical and it all, like, goes into each other that, I mean, this is something we haven't seen from this team in, you know, Ben Olsen's tenure in post games, is that when it comes down to it, we don't have that urgency. You know, it seems like he wants his team to be very, like, laid back, confident, like, we just got this, it's gonna come to us, we don't need to force it. But at the end of the day, like, that's not what happens. We lay back and we don't bring the urgency, and then we don't win the games. And that's what we saw today. That's what we've seen in these so many, you know, recent postseasons, you know, last year, the year before that, is we just didn't bring it to the other team. We didn't play like it was a must-win situation, and then we didn't win the game.
You know, having one superstar, one amazing player on your team is not a make-or-break solution for it. But I will say that in situations where your team is lagging a little bit, perhaps they're just not finding a way through, you sometimes need to have a player that you can turn to and say, you know, this is the guy who's going to give us that spark, really drive us on. And you saw that on occasion from some players. Higuain, particularly in the first 2 games, came on late, made a difference. But you can't rely on a guy like Higuain who's coming off the bench to be that difference maker. You need to have somebody you can point to and say, you know, this is the guy that we're going to ride when we have to. It's not going to happen every game. It's not going to be the only reason you make the playoffs or have a winning season or have that long-term success. But there are times when you need to lean on that, and I don't think we have that right now.
Yeah, I think Donald was spot on. I mean, I was pretty frustrated throughout, and I think, you know, you guys watching the game with me here saw my mood sour immediately, you know, when the goal went in, because I think that's exactly it. You know, we weren't set up with a lineup to really attack, but yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't see a ton of passion there. You know, like I feel like we've been, you know, very fortunate to watch as several leagues around the world have come to an end, and of course we've got a big day on Sunday in England. But you know, those players are out there, you know, pretty much fighting for their season, you know, and in this situation, you know, this could be the Open Cup this year, right? This could be the equivalent of that. I don't think we're going to see an Open Cup. Maybe we will. I think we'll be fortunate to. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of that. And, you know, we have another question here on YouTube from James again. Are we worse now than in 2013? And oh boy, James, it's early in your neck of the woods. You can't be getting that dark that early.
Yeah. Oh man.
Donald says in 2013 we won a trophy.
Well, and that's exactly where I was going to go. Right, is because this was our chance to potentially win a trophy if we're going to be that bad, and it's gone.
It's
so
the U.S. Open Cup, just as ridiculous.
And the CCL spot.
And the CCL spot's gone, right? But no, I don't think we're worse than 2013. Good Lord.
That was bad.
I think this team does have a future ahead of it. It's got some young talent who I think are going to develop, and there's a number of players on this team that just haven't had a ton of time to settle in MLS, to settle in here in DC, to settle into playing together. So no, I don't think we're worse than 2013.
This is certainly a team that's more talented than the 2013 team.
Right.
Across the board, you look at the 2013 team and say that is at best replacement level players across the board, almost universally. But that said, when you have a series of results like this, a couple of good things, and then your season could turn and get bad in a hurry if the players start losing belief. They start not feeling like they're actually able to make things happen, particularly when things aren't going your way. it can spiral in a hurry. You don't expect that. I don't think that's going to happen from this team. And frankly, it might be a good thing that we get some time off after a frustrating loss like this, but things happen.
I wonder what the players feel like seeing Ben's press conference, because they have to see that. Ben frustrated, pointing to the transfer window to improve things, and just being just defiant against answering questions from the media that were legitimate questions about the style of play and his choices.
You're right, and I think that is a very strong point, is that he didn't necessarily like defend his choices. He didn't like put faith in the team and just blatantly say like it didn't go our way. We weren't ready. We should have been. We weren't. This is a great team. Hopefully we get games to play and we can figure it out. He didn't say that. He kind of said like things didn't go our way. We should have done it, but like we're looking for the transfer window, or we don't really have the it factor of this team. I'm, paraphrasing, he didn't say that specifically, but he basically said, like, we don't have our team down pat yet, but we're looking to do that in the future. And you're right, that's probably super disheartening as a team to hear that and to think that going into this game, it was very much like, we got this, we can control it. And then after the loss, he's like, well, our key points just aren't there yet. And you got to think the players in the locker room are like, well, am I that key point that's not there yet? Like, who's being replaced with that key? Who's going to come in?
So I want to address one thing you said, Sam, and one thing you said, Michael. I think that over the years, obviously, Olsen's been stuck with some tough rosters and some better rosters. But I think one of the things that he's never really done is lost the locker room. And I think that's probably one of his strengths as a coach is keeping that mentality that these teams generally don't quit. And so while we didn't see as much fight and as much passion, end of season, end of tournament, style game tonight, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of blame game going around, because I do think the team recognizes that they weren't quite at full strength. And Sam, to one of the things that you said, I guess we haven't mentioned his name at all on this show, but when you look at the attacking options that Benny had or didn't have at his disposal tonight, three of the top players on this team weren't available, at least to start. With Ola Kamara being limited, you had the injury to Flores that held him out, and I was going to go with Paul Arriola, who's been injured the entire season. Pipa. And of course Pipa, not being able to go the full, really more than a half, probably 20 minutes or so. So I think all of that's to say that yes, this 2020 DC United team is better than what we saw in this tournament.
I think that is such a good point that you bring, that he's never lost the locker room, because I was actually thinking about this a little bit earlier in the show, is that when you have players like Wayne Rooney and Paul Arriola coming in, part of what they cited, the reason they're coming into this team is because they believed what the team stood for, and they believed that the future this team had and the way that they were going, the trajectory that we had through this league. Everybody has said, and even currently, the players are saying, we have such a good thing going for us, we're really going to do it. This team is special. This team has it. We're going to be able to make it. That's something that's reiterated from every single player. And, DC United has had players in the past who have said, I don't want to be here. I'd rather be transferred. This team is not for me. So I think it's interesting that it's been so long that we've been hearing that, and we haven't necessarily seen it played out yet. But you're right that he hasn't lost the locker room. They're all still buying into it. So what does that mean from here?
Yeah, and all that's to say, we probably do have to award a man of the match tonight.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
That is a segment we do here on this show. I'll have to do some homework here. I did not hear who ESPN awarded, nor did I see who DC United awarded.
I doubt they wear black and red for ESPN. I polled our audience on YouTube, and we got James Graham, who submitted two, said a trialist or Bill Hamid's commentary. And then Mark said own goal.
And I do. That's funny. I do not see the team putting out a man of the match here either. So, guys,
I'm gonna give. Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna give a potential shout for the whole tournament, and I tweeted this out from the account, but just to our friend Kevin Paredes for getting those 3-for-3 subs, and he did add a spark into it. And I think it was the first or second. I think it was the first or second press conference, or it might have been a pregame one, but Ben saying like he provides that spark of creativity, and it's not just about giving a young kid minutes. It's about like what he actively brings to the team right now as a player, which is just so promising for what we're going to see from him in the future. And I love seeing him have those moments on the field. And, we talked to him a lot before the tournament and really got to love his personality, but I've also just loved seeing him play on the field. And I'm definitely excited to see where he goes and the potential that he has.
Yeah, I'm definitely all on board with praising Kevin's performance in the tournament. Certainly making the best out of his moments and minutes he got out there. I think for me, now that DC United's been knocked out of the tournament, really looking over the course of their 3 games, the player who made the most impact on those 3 games was Pipa Higuain, coming off the bench, really showing that he is here to play. He is here to compete for a spot, and as soon as he's got that level of fitness they're looking for, I expect that he's going to be really pushing to potentially be starting on this team. I'm not going to say single-handedly, but the man scored 2 goals, and both goals were critical for putting us in position to even think about advancing. So for me, looking at the totality of the tournament, probably Pipa.
I tried to cheat, guys. I pulled up who scored for this game to see if there was anyone that stood out statistically that we might have missed.
Spoiler alert: no one wearing
scored.
black and red scored.
Literally, they're all at 6.4 or lower. Or Segura's at 6.5, and man, this hurts. But I'm actually going to shout Segura, who I started the game.
We can end the pod now. It's
in a position that he doesn't play, and was the player that looked like he cared the most, at least. And
yeah, between him and Felipe, I'll give you that.
Look, we needed more of that on the field. We talked about it earlier. The team didn't come out with the right attitude, and the only one that seemed to play, unfortunately, like guys, if you listen to me talk about him, I want more from him technically, but he did his job the best that he could, and he kept trying. So I'll give it to Segura. Love the Paredes shout, but I got to be different, and I got to give it to a starter. So Segura.
No, I think that's totally fair, and I love hearing you give Segura some praise, because I know that's
it hurt him deep.
That hurt you a little bit deep there, but no, I've got to go with Paredes as well. I mean, look, we've talked at length about this kid, but I'm just so excited about what he brings to the field. I mean, tonight we saw him body a couple guys, and I was like, is that Kevin? Who just like threw a dude off the ball and won it back, and he got beat once, and he was the first guy right back to the ball afterwards, and he's obviously 17, right? He could probably run around for another 2 hours, right now in the crazy Orlando humidity. But you need a guy like that to balance the team out, and it was so exciting to see him get the minutes. I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was excited to see Yao get some time too. Yeah. I think we're going to see Moses at some point this season before it ends. Hopefully it hasn't already.
Is, yeah.
Yeah. But no, that's it's been fun. I hate to wrap the show like this. I think we were kind of planning to have a match to preview here, but we don't at the moment. The MLS is back. Tournament final is on August 11th. So after that, hopefully, I think within the next week or so, the goal was for Don Garber and the league to kind of announce the preliminary details about a return to play. So once that's sorted out, I'm sure we'll be back with a show to kind of break down what that will look like. I would imagine we'll take this weekend off and probably look toward a show in the coming weeks. Obviously, it's not been a great couple days in the DMV for soccer. We mentioned Loudoun lost yesterday, and of course the Spirit crashed out on penalties on Saturday,
which was all the top seeds at that point. I haven't watched a couple of
in the Challenge
recent
Cup
games. Yeah, but all the top seeds were like being knocked out by PKs at that point. Like, I'm fortunate to see it happen, and it was super depressing in the show notes, especially as this game went on, to see all the sad DMV soccer. But hopefully it'll pick up sometime soon.
Yeah, but before we wrap things, I got to give a shout out to our crew on YouTube tonight. There's been a number of folks in there hanging strong, keeping the show going tonight, and encouraging us to think positive, which we should do, because I think I do still believe the future is bright with this team. If you're listening to us in podcast format and you have thoughts or think there's things that we totally missed, please let us know. Of course, we're always checking our DMs. You're using the hashtag TriedandTrueDCU. You can email the show at triedandtruedcu@gmail.com. And, of course, we always appreciate when you tell a friend to check us out on your favorite podcatcher.
Yeah. And I'd encourage you to check out, just follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. Make sure to look out for us. We are a post-game show, but obviously this season is very crazy. We expected to be doing a lot more post-game shows than we've been able to. But as John said, we will be coming back at you once we know a little bit more of what MLS will be doing with the rest of the season. If that doesn't happen, we will probably be doing a show every weekend like we were doing during the Corona hiatus. So I just encourage you to continue, looking out for us on social media to see what our schedule is going to be and continue just chatting with us, letting us know what you want to think. We definitely do want to hear your thoughts, especially as we don't have, games to talk about. So
checking the cues of Michael Black and Joshua Morgan, it sounds like we're at a wrap for the night, so I will put a smile on everyone's face as best I can as we send us out to our good friend Bobby Wine. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
The bad news is that everyone is a potential victim, but the good news is that everyone is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses to sanitize, keep a social distance and quarantine.
Coronavirus is sweeping over mankind.
Everybody must be alert. It's a global